Hi there, I'm Roxanne, and as part of Refugee Week, I'm going to share a little bit about my experience of volunteering with refugees and also practical ways that you can get involved. Refugee issues are something I've been passionate about for years now. When I was 18, I was involved with a project in the UK, in Cardiff, which was a church which became a community centre for asylum seekers and refugees, providing them with children's classes, providing them with a community cafe, also a place where they could get donations of clothes and practical things like that. That was really interesting to see kind of the situation here, and also to see a bit more about the legal side. There's a lot more than you actually realise is going on. But I think the most kind of eye-opening time for me volunteering with refugees was actually in France, in Calais. I went over to the Help Refugees warehouse and spent some time there volunteering just to learn a bit more about the situation, because Calais is it's got a very high refugee population, being on the coast with the port. It's just got a high refugee population. And in the warehouse, you get involved in lots of different activities. Um, I chopped a lot of veg. I smelt like onion for about 2 weeks, because they go out into the field and they give hot meals to refugees. Some of these refugees, that would be their only meal that day. Um, there's also sorting of donations, people will donate clothes, sleeping bags, tents, things like that, and volunteers sort through them, because obviously some things just might not be appropriate. So neon clothes, for example, anything bright that draws attention to refugees who are often just trying to kind of get by. They don't want the attention from police. So it's sorting through those donations. And I think the most eye-opening time for me was while I was there, I was asked to actually go onto the field. That's something that they don't let everyone do. It takes a lot. It's quite a full-on experience. So the food that you prepare throughout the day, you go out into a field. Help Refugees has to get kind of a permit to be able to give out this food. And the day I went, it was raining, and we were given a briefing, which was it was just a lot, really. The information they were giving you, I kind of thought, okay, this might just be precautionary. So things like being told, two important words are doctor and lawyer, and they said if the police come up to you and try to arrest you, here are the French words for doctor and lawyer. These are really important. Don't forget them. And also, we had a brief in the morning saying that in Calais it's common practice for the police to take the items belonging to these refugees. So often they will do kind of raids of areas where there's a high refugee population, taking their belongings. Sometimes they're allowed to keep a backpack and whatever they can fit in there. Other times it's everything, apart from the clothes on your back. And we're told that when that happens, that's obviously a very tense and upsetting situation for the refugees. And we were told that morning, when we were on the field, that there could be some tension, because obviously these people have just had their belongings stripped from them. There were people who had received a tent just the day before, a brand new tent which had got taken off them. So we'd had this briefing. I was ready to go. I was so excited. I'd had experience of working with refugees and asylum seekers in the UK. Became really good friends with some of the people that I was working with in the UK. So I thought this is going to be, interesting. I went out to the field with the team, and we set up. The tensions that were mentioned, I couldn't really sense. It was more kind of people moaning about the weather. It was miserable. It was rainy, and we were in a field. It was muddy. The asylum seekers and refugees just seemed to be happy to receive food. Some of them varying levels of English. Some of them had great English. They'd actually been in Calais for years, and in that time had any time they could speak to someone in English, that's how they learnt their English. I was able to converse with them absolutely fine. Others were very limited, but those that I could converse with just really seemed to just want to chat. They just wanted kind of a friend in those situations, so I talked to them. They were asking me about what I do and just different things like that. And then there was a group of lads that were like my own age, so they were just talking to me about football. I don't really like football, but I thought I can at least try and talk to them about it, which kind of humbled me because I thought these are just like my brothers, same age, just very different circumstances. So everything seemed to be going fine until in the distance we could kind of see flashing lights coming towards us. And as soon as I saw that, I kind of realised what was about to happen. It was the police. There had been issues, even though like Help Refugees had this permit. Sometimes the police will close it down early if they can say they think there's a health and safety issue, or there's too many people, or for whatever reason they might try and close this giving of food and donations down. So as soon as people saw the police, it just became mayhem. The refugees were obviously scared. They didn't want to be arrested. There was kind of rumours and stories of people getting lost in the system, people not knowing where their family members were after getting arrested. So everyone was just fleeing. People were trying to protect themselves, and I don't blame them at all. If I was a refugee in that situation, I think I would be the first one out of there. And the team, obviously knowing that we were in this kind of panic situation, started to hand out things as fast as we could to try and pack down. But it was just mayhem. We had hundreds of people kind of running, trying to flee, which obviously then caused a lot more panic. And in the situation, I just completely froze. I was petrified. I had no idea kind of what to do. I just stood there. The two words doctor and lawyer that I had been taught had completely slipped my mind, and I just thought, I don't know what to do now. And the team were continuing to pack away, kind of move away from the situation to de-escalate what was going on. And I just stood there. I just couldn't move until someone kind of put their hand on my shoulder and started walking. So I just went with them because I was in a complete kind of state of shock. And they took me and sat me down on the edge of the van and were just telling me to breathe. And when I looked, it was actually one of the refugees that I'd been speaking to. And he had been telling me how just that morning he had his belongings taken. He had just received a new backpack, and he said one of the most important things for him was his documents. He always kind of kept them in his pocket so they wouldn't get taken. And he was saying he was really worried about the police just before. And he, in the midst of all that chaos, he saw that I was in shock. And he stayed with me the whole time. He wasn't worried about the police. He said he wanted to make sure that, I was okay. And that really opened my eyes just to kind of the compassion of people. And he had told me he had nothing. He didn't know where his family were at this point. He said that he was just living day to day. But in that, he still took the time to care for me when he could have been protecting himself, moving on, staying with his friends. Because when his friends ran, I don't know if he managed to get back in contact with them. But still, through all the chaos, he sat with me. And that was just a moment where I saw God working. I thought, for someone to be this fearless and courageous, I was taken back. And that's something that has always stuck with me, that actually we kind of have Refugee Week and we talk about refugees and you see them in the media, but people kind of see them as the other. I think it's so easy to forget that they are people, they are human beings. They are us. There are refugees living in our communities in the UK. You may pass them and not even know what they're going through. So that's why it's something I'm really passionate about. So if that has inspired you, or maybe you've been thinking for a while, it's an issue I am interested in or something I'd like to know more about, there are definitely ways you can get involved. I think the biggest thing I think that anyone can do is actually to educate yourself. So the Children, Youth and Family team have a list of resources on their page which you can go on. JPIT has some fantastic resources alongside All We Can, just to educate yourself on the reality. There's a lot of fake news going about, so I think it's really important, if we're going to advocate for anything, we need to be well informed to do that. And then another way that we can get involved is to donate. Often people think of donate and just think financial. That's not the case. There are obviously organisations that would really appreciate financial support, but also time. I was a broke student at the time that I went to Calais, but I knew I had time, so I went there, and that's how I gave there. But that you don't have to travel abroad. There are so many projects here in the UK that you could get involved in. Skills as well. So I know in the UK there's a lot of kind of English classes. I know that I've seen people running kind of skills-based classes, so sewing, pottery, different things like that, which are really cool. And also things like old items that you don't need, so clothes that you might have grown out of, instead of just throwing them away, you could also donate them. A really good website for that is helprefugees.campaign.gov.uk. That's a government official website, where they will have links to kind of how to go about that in a way, just on the government website. That's a really good resource. And also, as faith-based people, I think that this is something we need to pray about, not just this week, but continually throughout the year. And there are so many resources out there. Or we can have a great kind of service linked to Refugee Week. And I think that actually it's something that we really need to pray about all year round. Hopefully you found something there that you think, actually, I can really get behind that. And hopefully you found this useful. Thank you.